Okay, I'm going to start this meeting. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 7th, 2021. We made it through 2020, woohoo, edition of the Plaistow Zoning Board of Adjustment. I'm Peter Bilo, the chair. Before we start, let me go through the standard and required COVID-19 statement. The Plaistow Zoning Board of Adjustment, due to the COVID-19/coronavirus.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, but we can't see you.
Can't see me yet? Okay. Well, it's a start.
Here you come.
You're coming on. Okay.
Slowly but surely, John.
The Plaistow Zoning Board of Adjustment, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis and in accordance with Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically, and these reasons shall be reflected in the minutes. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, we are confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone. Members of the public wishing to attend this meeting electronically may call the following conference call number 562-247-8422, access code 900-532-276. B, additional public access by video or other means will be available as follows. We are utilizing the go-to.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I'm just carrying on. We are utilizing the GoToWebinar platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting through the GoToWebinar platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting by clicking on the following webinar address, http://PlaistowAccess.com/zb/remote. And I'm hoping someday we'll go to HTTPS for secure connection. C, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting.
Thank you.
Legal notice was sent to all abutters for each application and was published in the Eagle Tribune newspaper with information on how to access the meeting. D, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting that a member of the public wishes to speak or be recognized during any public comment or public hearing. The GoToWebinar platform has both a raise your hand and Q&A feature that allows attendees to alert that they have a question. Please note that all questions submitted through Q&A feature must contain your address and will be read into the record. C, other access to the meeting. The meeting will also be broadcast on PlaistowAccess cable channel 17 and will be live streamed to the town website at www.plaistow.com. F, in the event that the public is unable to access the meeting by a conference call or GoToWebinar, the meeting will be adjourned and be rescheduled at a later time. But of course, if you can't get into it, I'm not quite sure how you can tell us you're not there. So with that, I'm out of breath. Dee, would you please call the roll? And please, everybody, remember about mentioning who else is in the room with you.
Peter Bilo,
I'm present. I'm all by myself with no other living creatures in this room.
Dan Lloyd,
Present, remote, alone.
John Blinn,
Present, remote, by myself.
John Gifford is excused. Gary Ingham,
Present, attending remote, and I'm alone.
Jim Unger.
Present, remote, and alone in this room.
Okay. John, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge of allegiance
To the flag
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I certainly hope protesters don't break down our doors like they did yesterday at a meeting in DC.
No, I think we're all safe here.
I
Just
hope
note
so.
for the record that Barb Burry has joined us. Ms. Burry, are you, you have anybody with you?
Your mic's off. Dee, do you have to turn on Barb's mic?
No, she's on. Maybe it's a volume thing, Barb. Thumbs up if you're alone. Thank you. I don't know what we're gonna do if you want to talk, but so you could have 5 voting members this evening, sir.
Okay. Okay, let's take a look at the meeting minutes from the last meeting.
Could I ask you to appoint Jim and Barb as voting members?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'll appoint Jim as a voting member. While I'd love to add a 6th, the RSAs don't allow me to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But given Barb's wealth and depth of knowledge, any board would be foolish not to try. So let's take a look at the meeting minutes for December 3rd meeting. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Seconded.
John Blinn seconded. Okay, let's take a minute. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Okay. Dee, would you call the vote?
Peter Bealow,
Yes.
Dan Lloyd,
Yes.
John Blinn,
Yes.
Gary Ingham,
Yes.
Jim Unger.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0-0.
Okay, what's our first business tonight, Dee?
We have a continuation from December 3rd, 2020, case number 20-31, a request from J&R Realty Trust, Jeffrey Raymond, trustee, for a variance from Article 5, Section 220-32B, to permit a contractor storage yard with the conditions of no outside storage of materials visible and no outside storage of heavy vehicles, including bulldozers, front-end loaders, and backhoes. Property is located at 190 Plaistow Road, tax map 44, lot 2, in the Commercial 1 district. The applicant is the property owner of record. And if you give me just a second, I'll unmute these microphones here. There you go. Gentlemen, you're all set.
So who do we have tonight?
Good
I
evening.
apologize, we can't see you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, and Ms. Voss. It's Attorney Pete Nicosia on behalf of the applicant.
And Charlie Zilch from SCC and Associates on behalf of the applicant as well.
Okay, excellent. So, Attorney Nicosia, would you like to, how would you like to start this continuation?
Yeah, I can start with some general dialogue. First of all, Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you all had good holidays.
You also.
Back to the grind we go. So you know why we're here. I mean, we're looking to put up a new building at 190 Plaistow Road. Building inspector has classified us as a contractor storage yard. We think we're more of a trade business. So we're trying to bridge the gap by saying, you know, let's presume that we are a contractor storage yard. However, we will take out the offending activities that are listed in the zoning ordinance that relate to contractor storage yards to allow us to go forward. And specifically, you know, any outdoor storage that we're going to engage in would be in containers, so they're not visible. And number two, you know, the listed heavy vehicles in the contractor storage yard, we would voluntarily stipulate to the fact that those wouldn't exist. So at the last hearing in December, if you recall, I gave you the long diatribe about all of the great reasons and the 5 factors on why we should obtain the variance. So there was some concerns expressed by the board members about 213 Main Street. So I had asked for a continuance so that I could sort of dive into that and understand what was going on over there. Now, that's what I've done. So I sent you a letter that sort of encapsulates things. I'm not going to just regurgitate that line by line. I'll just hit some of the higher points and have a general dialogue about that with you if I could. I mean, the reality is that 190 Plaistow Road is not going to be 213 Main Street. 190 Plaistow Road is going to be 190 Plaistow Road with a new development. It's intended to move the business over from Haverhill, and we want to have a nice, showroom and a nice, flagship location for the public for Plaistow. So, anyways, even though it's not, in my mind, legally relevant to the outcome determination of this application, I did want to at least respond to those concerns. So that's what I try to do. I got the records from Ms. Voss and from the building department. I was very appreciative of their cooperation in that. So my client John Raymond bought 213 Main Street back in 2015. So it looks like from June of 2015 through February of 2018, so over 2.5 years, there were no notices of violation for that site. So that should be interpreted as a positive in my view. From May of 2019 through today, there doesn't appear to be any notices of violation. So another 1.5 years effectively of what I consider to be a positive aspect. So the violations that are at issue seem to span a little over a year's time period in 18 coming into 19. I've summarized what those violation notices were. And basically, as you know, Plaistow's got section 220-17.2, which put on the books to afford the building inspector the discretion to make people clean up their properties, if it's in violation of that ordinance. And, the ordinance is pretty specific about trash and debris and, not causing detriment to the neighborhood. And I understand what the intent of it is, and that ordinance still is on the books today and is obviously going to apply to the new project. So, we're governed by that. However, when I drill down into these past violations, yes, there have been some instances where there has been some trash or debris or an overflowing dumpster, or select situations like that. There was also a concern about the view from the street, a sign that was put up, excess storage containers that maybe weren't compatible with what the prior owner's site plan approval was. So I understand that there were some violations in the past on this site. However, it wasn't abject non-compliance. In the majority of these instances, the specific concerns about overflowing dumpsters, locations of storage containers, the sightliness from the street, the sign, all of those issues were addressed at different times. I sent you a couple of pictures, I think, with the package too. Fences were put up, and from a street view, it clearly shields the area from the public. The overflowing dumpsters have been controlled. The sign's been removed. The site has been better organized in my view. And if you look at the picture that was taken yesterday of the interior of the site, what you see there, the majority of the items in the photo are inventory and stock that are going to be used on job sites, and they're organized by the nature of the item. They're on racks. They seem to be fairly orderly organized. Now, one man's junk is another man's treasure, the old saying goes, so some people may look at that and say, I think that's pretty unsightly, but it doesn't qualify as trash or debris to trigger a violation of that ordinance. So from that vantage point, I don't look at the storage of those materials as problematic under the ordinance that has been consistently referenced, because it doesn't cover those types of items. So, I understand the point to be made that, if there's transit of construction debris or things of that nature, I mean, the site needs to be controlled. It needs to be organized and it needs to be maintained. My client even addressed some of the past violations. I guess REP was having some problems there, with a catch basin and a sewer cover. My client came onto the site, rectified those for the town as well. Put up the fences as requested, addressed the trash and debris type issues. So you really have a 1-year period out of almost now 6 years where we had some trouble spots. But on the whole, I mean, in terms of the notices of violations, it seems to be not an awful history. I mean, could the site be more curb appealing? Potentially, but that doesn't mean that it necessarily violates the ordinance. Now, conversely, look at 190, what we're doing here. We're putting up a state-of-the-art facility for the purpose of housing materials and equipment, so that it isn't the situation that you have over at 213. We're agreeing to the fact that, if you have materials that are outside, like you see in plain sight on 213, we're going to put those things in storage containers. Now, could there be short periods of time, a day or two, when a manufacturer or a supplier drops off, let's say, a pallet of stock that we need a little bit of time to, forklift into a container or into the building? Sure, there could be temporary staging of that nature, but in terms of longer term storage beyond that, it's not going to be visible. So I don't feel that the board should look at 213 and have that situation be viewed as outcome determinative of 190. It's two separate properties that have fairly different characteristics in terms of when they are fully developed for highest and best use. I think the reality is that the creation of 190 will mollify some of the issues that you might, be concerned with at 213. I think that's helpful. I don't want to say that, 213 is closing up shop, but it certainly allows us a method to sort of rectify some of the concerns, as well as move our main operations from Haverhill over there. So, I don't view 213 as, something that should result in a no vote on this variance. I just don't see it. And I think, as a matter of fact, a no vote on this project it's almost cutting off your nose to spite your face, because this will help deal with 213, I think, to some degree. And I mean, look, it's going to be a nice project. We don't want to put in a bad project over here. This is going to be our flagship. We want customers to want to come to it. And for all the reasons I stated in my prior memorandum that I submitted to the board, I think it's a good project for the town. I mean, it's new economic development. It's new services. It's new job opportunities. It's new tax revenue. You have the ability to put some reasonable conditions on the variance here to control things. And you have an ordinance on the books that allows the building inspector to raise issues if there are issues. One thing I continue to scratch my head about on 213 is all of these violation notices tie back to the 1996 site plan approval that was granted to REP Landscaping. Apparently, the former building inspector did not require my client to have to get site plan approval, for when he bought that site at that time. My guess.
May I comment on that? When your client bought the property, the site plan that was in place comes along with it.
Yeah, that was my next comment. Is my guess is that the building inspector probably viewed it as the governing site plan for the next user of the site, and that's probably why that it's referenced to that. So I understand it. Again, I'm not coming to the board saying that there hasn't been some past issues. There were a handful of them. But on the whole, 5 of 6 years, there aren't violations. And my clients did take steps to address a number of the issues. And I think 190 is going to allow them to further address these issues on a longer term basis. So we're looking to be a good partner with the town. We're looking to be a good neighbor in that area. We're looking to do a good project over there. I don't know if Charlie, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, we've had an opportunity to look at the site plan that was prepared for REP, and some pretty stark differences between the two sites. And I can almost understand some of the issues that John, now that I know his business and what he does on a day-to-day basis with that site. There's a lot of limitations and restrictions to it. It's an oddly shaped parcel. It's an L shape, two long thin legs on it. It's 0.6 acres in size versus the 1.2 are basically double the size that we're going to have at 190. So just that in itself affords John the ability to create a better site, a neater site. And then the other part of it is the building at 213 is only 1,600 square feet. That's not a lot of space to include your office, warehouse, and garage area. At the new site, he's going to have over 2,200 square feet, 2 stories of just office space alone. And then the warehouse will be 3,400 square feet in size. So those areas afford John a much better ability to maintain the site in the manner in which he needs to maintain the site to be compliant with the zone. And so as Pete was saying, this is basically going to be John's flagship site. It's got high exposure right on 125. He wants to bring customers in. He wants to have a showroom. He wants to be neat and orderly. He's going to have good buffers all around. Right now, there's no landscaping along the front of the property with the old decrepit houses. That's all wide open. That'll be filled in. There's a landscaping requirement that he's going to be compliant to. It's going to add some nice buffer and some, curb appeal to the site. So in all, I think it's a good move. I think it can be maintained. And as Pete mentioned, we are willing to subject the site to some restrictions, like the no outside storage, not bringing in the types of equipment that would classify this as a contractor's yard. That's my thought on it.
So do you have anything else to say before we go to some questions and comments?
That's all I have right now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. So I've heard it several times that the Haverhill site will basically be moving up to 190 Plaistow Road. Just so you know, I had the opportunity to drive by the Haverhill site, and that is poorly presented as the Main Street site, in my opinion. Also, I want to point out that, we're talking about, your applicant's willing to do this or that, and that's all great. But I think we pointed out last month, there's an issue of trust in that. And, to that end, with specific regards to 190 Main Street, I'd like to point out that the applicant applied for and was given a temporary storage trailer / container permit back in May for 190 Main Street for one trailer. And when I drove by it on Tuesday, I'm finding 2 trailers, a business sign, and for some reason, a pop-up trailer. So we're already in violation of that. The building inspector noted that last month and says he's refrained from issuing a written violation while it's under review by the town. So I think he probably should expect that in the near future.
If I could respond to that quickly.
Sure.
There's a reason we're moving from the Haverhill site. It is just, it's a dilapidated building. We don't have the ground space. It's a depressed area. this is the very reason why we're trying to get out of there. We're trying to self-improve the view of the business, the business operations, what we're housed in. We're trying to get away from that. We're not trying to replicate that in another state. There would be no reason to do that. We're trying to improve. So again, what's going on in Haverhill shouldn't be outcome determinative of what we are proposing at 190 Plaistow Road, which I think the site plan tells a far different tale. In terms of the other issue that you've raised, I'm not aware of it, but I know that the temporary trailer is meant to be there, I think, for construction purposes, I believe, moving forward is my guess.
Yeah, but there's two, there's a business sign and there's a pop-up trailer.
All right.
Pop-up camper.
Yeah, I'm unaware of it, and had I been aware of it, I would have, I guess, addressed it. But again, you have to look at the site as built. You have to envision what is going to exist as built based upon that site plan presentation. And it's a good project. It really is. And it's gonna
How
allow
long
us
has
to
that
do a lot
site
of
been
it.
in Haverhill?
How long has he been in Haverhill?
Yeah, at that particular site.
I'm not sure. It's been several years, I think. So
Okay.
I just don't want failure prediction or guaranteed failure thoughts. That's not what's going to transpire in this new site. There's too much money being put into this to self-create those problems. We're trying to create this site to avoid these problems and have a better, more profitable, more pleasing business existence.
Okay. Board members, Barb, Jim, do you guys have any questions? If your mic isn't working, Barb, you can type it under Q&A or something, and Dee can read it.
No, I think most of our site plan questions were answered last month. I mean, looking at the blueprints and such, it looks like it, is proposed to be a nice looking site.
Okay, John, Gary, Dan?
Well, from what I see of the other two operations, I mean, I would not want to see a building go in on 125 that looked like 213 Main Street from the street. Because reading the list of offenses that haven't been addressed, it just says that he's not staying on top of things. So for us to grant it, or look favorable upon it is very tough, because there's a lot of other people around there, just like 213 Main Street. That's very visible from the street. Those fences do not hide that. I would like to see something where any of the construction debris or any of that stuff was not visible from the main road or anybody's house that lives next to it.
Sorry.
And that's,
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody else feels the same way, but
We could talk about it in deliberative, John.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I just briefly respond to that comment?
Absolutely.
With all due respect, John, Member Blinn, my client has addressed past violations. It hasn't been a situation where we have not addressed anything. And my view of the site from the photographs which I sent you and other ones that I have, as of yesterday, I don't perceive current violations of the site. So again, what's going on at 213 should not be outcome determinative to the new site, because what we're proposing at the new site, as Charlie Zilch just went over, is completely different, will allow us to avoid these types of issues. We're voluntarily stipulating to the fact that we're not going to have that type of heavy equipment or the outdoor visible storage of materials which you're concerned with. So there will be conditions in the approval that will deal with those types of issues. I mean, we're voluntarily stipulating to that stuff.
So do you guys not consider a lull contractor equipment?
Oh, you can have those types of things. You can have all types of lighter vehicles and lighter equipment. The contractor's yard specifically defines what the prohibited heavy equipment vehicles are: bulldozers, front loaders, and backhoes. Your ordinance specifies it. So, you know, lifts, other types of equipment, box trucks, work trailers, all of that is allowed as a matter of right.
I would think that'd fall under trade business.
I mean, look at what plumbers, electricians, HVAC contractors use. All of those things that I just mentioned. And they're all allowed as a matter of right as part of a trade business. It's only the heavy vehicles that are prohibited in a trade business. And we're voluntarily stipulating to avoid that.
When I read the strict definition of contractor's yard, to me, it tells me that they're trying to prohibit or define rather, and prohibit in this zone, earth contractors, such as like what Plaistow used to have, Center Brothers or Busby Construction, those kind of companies where they have road builders or you know, massive earth projects, things like that. That's what I read when I read that definition. To me, this works into a trade business.
Major site work contractors, large scale general contractors, that's what they're trying to avoid.
Okay. Are we ready to ask if there's anybody in speaking in favor of this? If you're speaking in favor, please raise your hand. D?
I have no raised hands and I have not received any emails.
Okay. Is there anybody with questions that are, you know, not necessarily positive or negative, or are speaking against this proposal?
Again, I see no raised hands and I have not received any emails.
Okay. Well, I guess, Mr. Dickinson, if you guys have nothing else to present, we'll close this and go into deliberation.
So two last points, if I could. I mean,
Sure.
No public opposition, I think, is a very positive factor that the board needs to consider. I'm unaware of any interdepartmental negative comments for other departments. We understand we have other permitting paths we have to follow, but no negative internal comments, I think, are favorable too. And the final point that I will make is, again, if you look, you have to have the foresight to look at, think what the site will be when it's built out. And this allows us to cure, I think, virtually every concern that has been expressed by the board due to the functionality and size and newness of this site. You know, we're trying to invest a lot of money into Plaistow here to make ourselves better and make the town better. So I think we deserve that opportunity, and I hope that you really give us a shot here. So thank you for your time. I appreciate everybody's time and consideration.
Okay.
And
Thank you very
one
much.
last thing, if you don't mind. Just early on in the process, when I spoke with John about what he envisioned for the site, it's pretty much as this plan indicates. It's his flagship site where he wants to attract new business, bring in clients, customers, have the showroom. I also asked him about outside storage, what his needs were going to be. And his response was basically that he was going to try and keep everything contained within the warehouse area. That's why I originally started off with a smaller warehouse, and we kept making it slightly bigger at the expense of some of his parking area. So obviously he wanted to try and get it so that he had a warehouse of size to contain everything. And then I said he had the option of adding containers, but they need to be on the site plan and those would be permitted as well. And I asked what he would need, what his needs were, and he said, maybe 2, let's put them on the plan if I should need them. So he didn't really even have a real strong need for the containers. We added them because at some point he probably will use them. But my feeling is from what John and I have talked about is that this site should serve his needs fairly well, and he should be able to keep everything well contained and out of sight.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Zilch.
You're welcome.
Unless there's some other comments from or questions from anyone, I'm going to close this hearing and we'll go into deliberation. Okay, make it so. We are in deliberation. We can no longer take input from the outside. Would somebody please make a motion for this variance request?
Could I request that if you are going to make such a motion and there are going to be conditions included, that you state them as part of the motion?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Let's
Before we
not
read the motions,
I'm sorry.
what would be the conditions? Before, if we didn't want to read the motions, I mean, the conditions along with the motions, what are the conditions? I
Actually,
know one of them had to do with the storing of the lifts in the upward position. that
Exactly.
We talked about last month. That's the only one I think we went over last month.
I think Pete, someone had brought up as far as legalities, fees that
Yeah, that he, if there was any legal issues, they would be responsible to pay all fees.
correct.
I have checked with Attorney Clary, and that is not something you can make a condition of because the court would have to order any fines or any repayment of legal fees.
Okay.
so yeah, our attorney slapped our hands on that, or at least my hands.
The only thing I remember was about lulls and forklifts and such being stored in the down position.
Well,
John?
I for one, just, feel as though, like I said earlier, that driving by there, we shouldn't be able or should not be able to see, construction equipment, for lack of better words, and all that materials that shouldn't be visible to anybody driving by there.
May I
And the fences should be able to block those where they don't block it on 213 Main Street.
May I suggest to the board that they include the conditions that the applicants themselves have put in the application, that there be no outside storage of materials visible and no outside storage of heavy equipment, including bulldozers, front-end loaders, and backhoes?
You'd have to add lulls.
You're adding lulls because you have a condition that those could be stored but not.
Well, no, that's what I mean. That condition would have to be that they were in the downward position.
Right.
That one we did
But that
last month.
Now,
As of right now, I would have 3 conditions if this is what the board is thinking, that the storage of the lifts and lulls or booms would be in downward position, that there would be no visible outside storage of materials, and that there would be no heavy equipment vehicles, including bulldozers, front-end loaders, and backhoes.
John also had mentioned that he was concerned regarding a buffer between the neighbors and the back parcel of that lot.
I would suggest that would be a planning board matter.
Yeah.
The site plan shows that.
Okay.
And
They
that's
have
really
a
for the planning board to deal with.
plan that shows quite a buffer between the back lot, which will actually make that back lot look a lot nicer from the street than it does right now. I
Okay.
took a long drive by there today and, almost anything's better than what's on that property today. But if you look at sheet 5 of 9 of our plans, there is a side buffer of shrubbery, tree line. It's a landscaping buffer that goes basically around 2 sides of that back dwelling. which when that's all grown, will actually make that view look much better from the street.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we good with those conditions we have so far? I think we don't touch the buffers because that's a
Yep.
planning board issue.
It's all on the site plan. It's a nice looking, I went through the
Yeah.
plans. It's a nice looking site.
Okay, so
Draft
who's making,
motion in your staff report with those conditions can be added.
okay, and who made the motion?
Nobody did yet.
I will. I just
Thank
need
you.
to know, is it 220-32B? Or is
Yes,
that an
sir.
A?
That's
It's a B, as in Bravo, okay. I move to grant the application for a variance from Article 5, 220-32.B to allow a contractor's yard at 190 Plaistow Road, tax map 44, lot 2 in the C1 district with the following conditions. Man lifts / lulls must be in a downward position during non-use, no visible outside storage of materials, and no heavy equipment, AKA bulldozers, front end loaders, etc., stored on site.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Unger. Okay. So we have a request to put a contractor's yard with some conditions in the C1 zone on Route 125. Let's kind of go
Is
through
that the right? Is that the right wording for that contractor's yard?
Yes,
That's what the building inspector put down, yes.
and actually, that's what they're requesting, for a variance to allow a contractor's yard in the C1 zone.
Will that wording allow them to do certain things that we don't want them to do? Even with the, restrictions we're putting on there?
I don't believe so,
Okay.
but that's a good question. Thank you for bringing it up.
Before we go through the criteria, Peter, I have some comments which kind of hit the criteria, maybe. Things that are bothering me about this whole issue, actually. Mr. Raymond, the owner, we haven't heard word one from him. He's doing all his talking through a lawyer. To
But
me,
that's
kind of,
perfectly, that's
it's
perfectly
perfectly
legal.
okay, but I'm saying, these are things that I'm concerned about. And the lawyer, which I don't know what the lawyer's name is. Last month, he asked for a continuance because Mr. Raymond was not forthcoming with things that he wanted to get information on. This month, he said the same exact thing on two different comments that, well, I'm not really aware of that. Again,
Gary-
that goes kind of towards Mr. Raymond's,
Gary,
like you said.
Gary,
really
Gary,
trust-
I need to cut you off on this, Gary. We can't make a
Okay.
decision based on that. I apologize, but that's going down a rat hole that we don't want to go down.
Okay, let me make one other comment that has already been touched on. Past performance is pretty indicative of what future performance is going to be, and I'll leave it at that.
I'd go so far as to say present performance, given the extra trailer and sign and other things on the 190 Plaistow roadside that are
I
unpermitted.
agree.
And
Okay.
the pictures that we got today regarding 213 Main.
Yep.
That property wasn't like that 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it
'Cause
looks
I
clean.
drove by.
Well, that's okay. That's a current state. So let's go down the list. Variance is not contrary to the public interest. If owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance will result in an unnecessary hardship, and so the spirit of the ordinance shall be observed. We'll go through the rest of them later, but it's contrary to the public interest. I'm concerned it is contrary to the public interest. We want to have commercial buildings in the C1 area. I don't see how it's of interest to this town to allow a contractor's yard, which is not allowable in the C1, to be placed there. And yes, there's a falling down, if I may use the pejoratives here, a falling down house located there now, but that house is going to go away soon, one way or another. A next windstorm could push it over. What we're being asked to do is grant a variance that's good kind of forever. So we're being asked to change a current eyesore to something else in perpetuity. The spirit of the ordinance is observed. You know, the spirit of the ordinance is to encourage for commercial development in the commercial zone. And in my mind, if there is any commercial aspect to this, it's secondary or tertiary. This, you know, in my experience base, roofers and siding people go out to houses and do their marketing and sales there. I note that that this business also constructs at least decks, and that's very off-site kind of sales and marketing, not requiring a large or much if any commercial area. So this really ends up being more industrial in nature in my mind, and not very little if any commercial. But again, that's just me.
Well,
Substantial. I'm sorry.
I don't want to interrupt, but a lot of roofing contractors, building contractors, I've been into several that have very nice showrooms that people go in and they make their sales there, and they have samples. I see it all the time at my job.
Oh, okay. Point taken. Point taken. And you do get out to more than I do. Substantial justice must be done. I hate the substantial justice one. So any loss to the individual which is not outweighed by a gain to the general public is an injustice. Also, the court can examine whether the proposed development is consistent with the area's present use. Well, this development isn't really in. I mean, what's there now isn't. It has nothing to do with the zoning, really. It's a residence is falling down compared to the commercial zone, commercial area. Again, you know, is this closer to the permitted use or not? I'm a little up in the air on this. The values of surrounding properties are not diminished. Well, again, in the short term, doing anything to that old house, I mean, just tearing it down would make it better. But the question I have in my mind is, if we allow this contractor's yard there, is that gonna inhibit other businesses from building real commercial or true commercial applications nearby? And I'm concerned that it would actually, if it ends up being a blight to the neighborhood. Literal enforcement of the provision of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. I'm not seeing it. I don't see anything really unique in that property, and nothing's been told to us that's unique in that property that we should grant this variance. It's a reasonably, you know, it's a moderate sized lot. It's not huge, not a Walmart Plaza, but it's bigger than some other lots in town that have small commercial properties on them. So I'm not seeing where literal enforcement would result in unnecessary hardship in any case. But that's, again, just as me. Someone has a different opinion, please, you know, go there.
Well, I think they're probably looking, if this is gonna be their flagship operation, they're looking for traffic count, so they want to be on Route 125. They want to have someone say, hey, this is where this guy is, and,
Right.
and pull in.
Anybody else have any comments? Are you guys ready? You folks ready to go to a vote or what have you?
My own opinion is when I read trade business and I read contractor storage yard, to me, with the stipulations we're putting on him, he is more of a trade business. Because basically they're building a warehouse for inside storage and containers for inside storage. I run into plenty of plumbers who have outside storage, yet plumbers a trade business. It all depends on the operation.
Okay.
But in the long run, how many outside storage units are gonna be up there? He could fill that entire piece of property with outside storage units.
Well,
And say, well, my storage is all inside.
it's on his site plan. His storage containers are on the site plan.
You know,
Yeah, I believe
I
it's,
wish I had the trust to think that he would go by that. I'm sorry, but I don't.
Does the town have any teeth to enforce these things?
Only in spending the money to go to court, which is something this town tends not to do.
Yeah. I don't know. I just drove by there today and that's just such a nasty looking lot. To think that something nice could be there is a big improvement. And when we're talking about, having equipment visible, 50 feet away, there's hundreds of pieces of equipment visible. They just happen to be for sale instead of being in use.
Right.
Across the street from MB.
Mhm.
And there's nothing to the left. It's a swamp. Nothing will be built there.
Anybody else want to chime in?
No,
Okay, Dia, I think we're ready for a vote. Dee?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Dan Lloyd,
yes,
John Blinn,
no,
Gary Ingham,
No,
Jim Unger,
Yes.
Peter Below.
No.
Vote is 2-3-0, and the motion is defeated.
Right.
I have for the record that it is suggested from the notes I was taking that the board does not feel that they met any of the criteria for the granting of a variance. Would I have that correctly?
I would say maybe some substantial justice was met.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Would you like me to read the next case, or?
Yes, I do.
Case number 23-32, a request from J&R Realty Trust, Jeffrey Raymond trustee, for an appeal of the administrative decision of the building inspector, which determined the applicant's use to be a contractor storage yard, which is not a permitted use in the C1 district. The property is located at 190 Plaistow Road, tax map 44, lot 2 in the C1 district. The applicant is the property owner of record. And I am unmuting the microphones again. Gentlemen, you are all set.
Thank you.
Again, Charlie Jones from SCC.
Peter Nicosia, the attorney for the applicant.
Okay.
When you're
So-
ready, I'm ready.
We're ready.
So this is an alternative request. The first one was to try to solve the situation by variance relief. This one is a straight up challenge to the building inspector's zoning determination. characterizing us as a contractor's yard when we are in fact a trade business. The building inspector's determination is wrong because our description of the use does not include outside visible storage of materials and does not include heavy vehicles such as bulldozers, front-end loaders, and backhoes. And because we are indicating in our proposed use that we are not engaging in either of those activities, all of our other activities are akin to a trade business. I sent obviously a full application for appeal package to you in this matter. You have a detailed letter dated November 6, 2020 that contains all of the legal and fact arguments, which are essentially a replication of what you heard in the variance hearing process. So I'm not going to reiterate those now. But the fact that our business description does not include the two separating factors from the two definitions, the building inspector is wrong in characterizing us as a contractor storage yard. So it's as simple as that. Building inspector's determination was arbitrary and capricious and not based upon the facts or based upon the actual intended use of the site.
Could you please point out where in the Plaistow zoning there's a definition for a trade business?
Yes. So under Article 2 definitions, which is section 220-2.
Yep.
A trade business.
Where? What page? What page?
I don't know what page it is because I don't have
the page either,
that I'm looking at versus what you may be
Hold
looking
on, I'm getting it. Hold on.
Okay, because I'm looking at all the definitions and I don't see a definition in the 2020
Look under
ordinance.
business first. Look under
What?
business first.
Oh, it's on page 4.
Oh, 4. Okay, hold on.
Yes,
Sorry, I
it's
was.
letter G under businesses.
To the extent somebody doesn't have it, I can certainly read it to you.
Oh, I have it, but please read it anyhow.
Trade business. A business enterprise which holds the necessary state and local licenses to provide trade services directly to the ultimate consumer. Such examples would be electricians, plumbers, and HVAC contractors. This does not include businesses such as landscaping or construction contractors that typically call for outside storage of materials. Conversely, the definition of a contractor storage yard, a site upon which heavy vehicles and equipment such as bulldozers, front-end loaders, and backhoes and materials and supplies and forms used by professional contractors in construction, land clearing, site work, utilities, landscaping, or other similar activities are stored, including waste disposal containers. Land upon which any of the above items are temporarily stored on site during the course of an active construction project shall not be considered a contractor storage yard. So again, we are clearly akin to plumbers, electricians, HVAC contractors in terms of the vehicles we use, the equipment we have, the storage of materials that we're going to engage in, and we will not, and the proposed use to the building inspector did not include the provisions of heavy vehicles or visible outside storage of materials. So there is no way that the building.
I'm sorry, I need to interrupt for a moment. Can we hang on 1 second? There, okay, Mr. Unger's back. Okay, thought I lost him. Okay.
So there is no rational fact or legal basis to characterize us as a contractor storage yard when our use definition fits into the trade business definition. So we feel that decision should be overturned by the board.
But given these folks do contracting, they clearly do things like decks. That falls squarely under contractor and not trade.
I disagree. I mean, HVAC contractors, plumbers, and electricians are engaging in the physical alteration of real property, siding, windows, roofing, and even if it's decks as an accessory to a principal dwelling, or it's clearly distinguishable.
Mhm. You know, further on in that same paragraph, it says this does not include businesses such as landscaping or construction contractors.
We are not a construction contractor.
The website says contracting.
Well, HVAC contractors are contractors, electrical contractors are contractors, plumbing contractors are contractors. The word contractor is a misnomer. You have to go by the literal language of your use definitions. Compared to the proposed use of the applicant, we fit within a trade business with our proposed use, not a contractor storage.
Okay. I understand that. Any questions from the board, comments from the board? So I guess I want to read just a paragraph from, let me pull what it's from here. I should know the title of the stupid book. I refer to it often enough.
At the zoning handbook?
The Board of Adjustment in New Hampshire Handbook for Local Officials, published by New Hampshire Office of Strategic Initiatives, December 2018. When an appeal is made to a Board of Adjustment under this provision, and this is appeal of administrative decision, the board must apply the strict letter of the law in exactly the same way that a building inspector must. It cannot alter the ordinance and map or waiver any restrictions under the guise of interpreting the law. I just want to let we have very, very few cases like this. I want to make people understand how we need to view the law in this case. So no other-
one point, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So again, you're right. I have that same book. And the board's purview is to look at the literal language of the bylaw definitions and compare it to the literal language of what the proposed use is. Not what you think the proposed use might be, but what the proposed use as it's proposed. And we are not proposing a use that includes heavy vehicles or outside storage of materials.
Okay.
So you're saying you're not going to have outside storage of materials?
Correct, other than, the two storage containers that we propose, which are interior, they're not visible. We're not having outside storage of materials, and we're not having outside storage of the specified heavy vehicles.
There'd be nothing like that you would typically associate with a contractor's yard, like aggregate material storage bins, things like that. It's nothing like that on the site. This is purely a trade business.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
No?
Dee, would you see if there's anybody speaking in favor of this?
There are no hands raised. Let me check email just real quick here. Sorry, I've got to work with two mice here and two computers, and there are no emails.
Okay.
And there's nothing in the Q&A.
Is Mr. Blanchett in the audience tonight?
No, I'm sorry, he's not. I know he intended to be when I spoke with him earlier today to
That's okay.
ask, but he is not there.
Okay. Okay, is there anybody speaking against this?
Again, I see no raised hands and no emails.
Okay. In that case, we're going to close this hearing and go into deliberation. Would somebody make the motion out there?
I will if I can find it.
It's on the second page of the application.
Next page, yep.
Near the bottom.
I move to grant the appeal of the administrative decision of the code enforcement official that the application is for a contractor's yard, a non-permitted use at 190 Plaistow Road, tax map 44, lot 2 in the commercial 1 district with the following conditions.
That's that last phrase is in there in case you put conditions on, so you don't need that as part of the motion. Unless you're putting a condition on.
Oh, will the same conditions as we stipulated above apply?
No, no, because you're basically deciding, I mean, it's up to the board however they want to word it, but you're basically deciding up or down whether or not you think the code official was correct.
Okay. So it sounds like no conditions.
Well,
Are you putting conditions on the code official's decision? Is what you have to look at it from.
I see.
So Pete, if I understand myself, understand them correctly,
Could I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
So, go ahead, Dan.
Just so I understand, they're saying, take the parcel out of the equation for a minute. They're saying their business is not a contractor's business, correct?
They're saying that they are not a contractor storage yard.
Right, they're claiming that they
The business
or
or this
trade.
parcel, the business as a whole, or this parcel on 125?
I think they're saying the business as a whole, it's a trade business, not a contractor's business.
And one of the description is a contractor's business is outside storage of materials.
Right.
And heavy equipment.
And like I say, hate to beat a dead horse, but look at 213 Main Street with all the outside materials. That's a contractor's yard.
Which is what they claim is now going to be in the warehouse. That's why they're building a warehouse.
Right, but they're saying that they're not a contractor's yard or a contractor's business. And one of the descriptions is having outside storage. So whether they put it in a container now, they're saying in the past, 2-3 years ago, they still weren't a contractor's business, but they had contractor material outside. That's how I'm perceiving this.
Right, but I'm just looking at the site plan saying, they're saying it's all going to be inside, which on this site plan, if they have no outdoor storage of materials, that's what's really defining the trade business versus contractor storage business. If you look at our own definition, it says this does not include businesses such as landscaping or construction contractors that typically call for outside storage of materials.
Right.
So they're claiming that on this site, everything's in the warehouse or in a storage container.
So it's going to be different for that site than it's going to be for Main Street.
Well, they don't have a warehouse in Main Street. If you look at the site plan, there's a good sized warehouse going in there.
No, I get that, but they're trying to say that the definition of their business is not a contractor. So
No, they're trying to say that they are going to operate as a trade business by our definition. Our definition says typically calls for outdoor storage, and our definition of contractor storage yard says vehicles, heavy equipment, bulldozers, front end loaders, backhoes, materials, supplies. So what they're saying is what they are proposing on their site plan falls more in line with a trade business than a contractor storage yard. That's how I take it, put it that way.
for that parcel.
For
I
that
just
parcel.
Right, okay, but I just think they just wanted to, I don't know, that's a slippery slope for me anyways. I get what you're saying. But I don't know.
That's why I was kind of confused, because now by saying that they are a trade business, does those stipulations go away for the previous one, we had the stipulation of no front end loaders, backhoes, blah, blah, blah. Does that all disappear now?
If I'm thinking it would, because what they're stipulating, what they're trying to do right now is get it changed from the building inspector's qualification that there was a contractor's storage yard, which is not allowed on a C1. So if we stipulate that it's not a contractor's storage yard, they can probably get their permit as a trade business without having to come through us.
Right. That's what, right.
Right,
Oh,
okay.
will that then allow them to store bulldozers, front end loaders, backhoes, material, et
No,
cetera?
No,
then
'cause
then they'd be against their license because that's not allowed in a contract, in a
The trade-
trade.
Trade.
Okay,
No, actually, the definition of a trade business is moot on that.
it doesn't say so.
Right. So if it doesn't say anything about it, then they can do it.
Right, so that's different.
And look, I'm falling back on, if you look at the definition of trade business, this does not include businesses such as landscaping or construction contractors. And these guys clearly advertise they do construction. And
Right.
if you're going to build a deck, you have to do a little landscaping and digging and stuff underneath that potentially.
Right, but our own definition is saying they're not allowed because they typically call for outdoor storage of materials. You're leaving that sentence out.
I am, that part of it, yeah.
Right.
But he's again. He's trying to tell them that their business isn't trade, that it's a contractor. And if you take 125 out of the scenario, and they were looking for, just for humoring me, that they take 125 parcel out of the condition, they're not even thinking about it. This gentleman went in and declared them a contractor's yard. Just looking at 213 Main. So basically, they're trying to change what type of business they are. They're trying to say that they're not a contractor, that they're strictly trade. And I don't agree with that.
Well, I guess what's the definition of a contractor? Because someone swings a hammer, he's a contractor, but if he's a plumber, he's not?
No, I'm saying part of the definition is outside storage.
Right.
And that's what they have at 213 Main.
In Maine, they would be a contractor storage yard.
So then why are they different just because they move up the road?
Because they have a site plan that shows them having a warehouse and they're claiming there's gonna be no outside storage up the road. All I'm doing is looking at the plans.
Right.
Yeah. So in addition to this, this, I don't think this is mere semantics, but this isn't an end all be all either. But, the very first thing that this applicant came to us with was asking for a variance to be a contractor's yard on 120 in the C1 zone. So they already stipulated they were a contractor's yard. If they didn't believe they were a contractor's yard, they ought to have come to us in the other order.
I agree.
And frankly, we did not, this board did not set what order they came to us in. This wasn't something artificially constructed and thrown at them.
It almost seems like they're trying to make an end run around the zoning. They didn't get it what they wanted the first time, so now let's reword it and try it another way.
Well, it's on the same piece of paper, right? I think they're just claiming that their site falls under our definition of trade business better than it falls under our definition of contractor storage yard. And if I read our two definitions, I have to agree, provided their site is built as proposed on the plan and maintained that way.
Right. And I also question that, given the fact that they can't seem to get anything in compliance.
This turns around for me anyway. It all goes back to trustworthiness. How much can we trust this guy? Well,
I
I
don't
didn't get it
think we're
one way,
allowed-
so now I'm gonna try to get it another way.
I don't know if we're allowed to do that though, from
I'm just saying, that's me personally. I have an issue with it.
lately. Peter sent out a bunch of stuff for us to read and I read it, and it sounds like we're not allowed to do that.
Well, this isn't really just looking at the aesthetics. This is looking at the, this is taking into account the applicant's past history and present, not even present history, present tense, unwillingness to live up to their commitments. It's that other issue was pretty much strictly, as stated, at least, an aesthetics issue to the neighbors.
Up to a few weeks ago, he had a bulldozer sitting on the property. It's finally gone. On top of the storage trailer that wasn't supposed to be there. Whoever said it's a slippery slope, we're right.
Was the bulldozer doing work there?
No, it was parked out in the back on the property line, way in the back.
Yeah.
It was just sat there for a long time, and it was finally moved.
Well, all I can say is tonight, we are finally earning our copious salary.
Does that go under you get what you pay for?
Maybe. Mr. Selectman John Glenn, you guys better be ready to cut a big check next week.
We're ready.
Okay.
Gosh.
Now you know why I turn off my camera so I don't roll my eyes when you guys make comments like that. About getting paid.
Yeah, but we can hear your eyes rolling.
They do make a sound tape. Are we ready to go to a vote, or is something else to discuss on this?
Yeah, I think we're
Discuss
ready.
it all night long. Ready.
Okay, Dee, call the roll, please.
John Glenn,
No,
Gary Ingham,
No.
Jim Unger,
I still say yes.
Peter Belo,
No.
Dan Lloyd.
No.
The vote is 4-1-0, and the motion is defeated.
Okay. Dee, do you want to read the standard, wait 10 days, yada, yada, yada?
Oh, I'm sorry. Notices of decision will be sent out within 5 business days. However, it is 30. You have a 30-day appeal period to request a rehearing if you feel that the board has erred either procedurally or you have new evidence to present. At that time, the decision would become final.
Thank you very much. Okay. Onward, what other business do we have tonight?
Everybody was sent out in last month's packets. You had a copy of the bylaws for the board with the eye towards whether or not any amendments should be made. I have a couple of suggestions. I'm trying to open my folder here.
I know I have my copy. I've read it 3 times today. Not finding it. Actually, can we call a recess for? Yeah, can we just call a recess for a minute while I hunt down my copy?
Well, we'll just, let's not shut off the cameras though, because it's a pain to bring everything back up. You can just go look for what you need.
I'll just go look. Thank you for all bearing with me.
We'll play the Jeopardy interlude or something like that. All right, who's got the music playing? Just to let you know, because I had him muted, he wasn't able to say anything, but Charlie Zilch asked me to express his thanks for the board's careful consideration in the matter.
And if Charlie's still listening, I'd like to thank him for bringing yet another interesting case to us.
Well, they're gone, sorry.
Okay. Next time you see him, let him know, please.
I will.
Okay, Dee, you had a couple things here.
Well, one of them we kind of talked about, but I'll put it on my list because I already have it open. But under the second paragraph of officers, my suggestion is we change it to April instead of the September, which is right after when elections would be and reappointments for expired. Every board members expire at the end of March. So you're reappointed starting in April. If we keep the elections in September, then you're kind of splitting things. So if you had somebody who happened to be elected to the vice chair or the chair in September, but their membership expires in March, you won't have a chair after that. So I'm suggesting, like most of the other boards, that we tie it to the change in membership.
I would agree with that, actually.
Vince?
Agree.
I agree.
Sure.
Under meetings, a few more paragraphs, same page, but a few paragraphs down. I suggest adding some kind of language, and I don't have it completely fleshed out yet, but on the idea of remote access meetings shall also be allowed as prescribed by New Hampshire RSA or any special order of the governor's office. The public shall have the same rights of participation in a remote meeting as with an in-person meeting.
I don't think we need to do that. I mean, the governor's executive order.
But the reason I'm putting it in there is because I really anticipate from discussions that I've been reading about and hearing about that there will be a change to the RSAs that will allow remote access meetings as a matter of routine, not just under a special order.
Okay, okay.
We could always wait until that happens. I'm just putting it on the radar there, like we're all looking for suggestions. My next one would be down on, I believe it is the third page. Under appeals from, under the next paragraph right under the bullets. Appeals from an administrative decision taken under RSA shall be filed within 30 days instead of 20. And that would apply to a whole deadline across the board. Most every other deadline everywhere going is a 30-day deadline. The RSAs allow each individual board to set the deadline. 20 days is really tight to turn when they get some kind of a decision from another entity to turn it around and get it in their application. And you'll get better applications if you give them those extra 10 days.
That makes sense.
I think I had one more, but I can't remember what it was now, and I didn't get a chance to write it down yet.
I've got a couple. At the very bottom of page 1, personal electronic devices at meetings. You know, that's what we're all using right now to talk to each other.
Mhm.
So I think we need to make them acceptable to, if they are the means to access the meeting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Page 2, under disqualification. The very last sentence, I don't like a word. I don't like it a lot. Well, yeah, I don't like, so the last sentence in the middle of it, the member disqualifying him or herself shall absent him or herself from the board table. No, shall remove him or herself from the board table, I would think. I've never seen the word absent used like that.
I have. But
Really?
Probably
taken.
legal term.
Oh, yeah. if you did a thesaurus on it, I bet you'd get a synonym with it.
Yeah, but it's not a common usage.
No, and it doesn't probably in the common speak have the meaning that most would think it to have.
Yeah. Bottom of page 3, under personal notice. Last sentence in there. Said notice shall contain the same information as a public notice and shall be made on forms provided for this purpose. What forms are those?
Where are you again? I'm sorry.
Bottom of page 3, under personal notice shall be made.
Let me read it real quick.
The very last sentence.
Yeah, I'm trying to read it in context. That's basically saying we have to send out the certified notification of the hearing.
Okay, I was taking it to mean that there's some particular form that had to be filled in and then sent to the planning board or whoever. But, okay, I'm good with that.
Pretty much that whole paragraph could probably be stricken because all of that is contained under RSA 91A mentioned in the paragraph above.
Oh, that's a good point.
That's why we started going to referencing things to and tying them to the RSA instead of writing out the paragraphs to duplicate what was in the RSA. So that way, if the RSA were to change, our zoning, our bylaws would automatically change with it.
Okay. Are you folks good with getting rid of that whole paragraph?
Yeah, I am.
Yep.
And the only other one I had was at the bottom of page 4, I guess it is, request for rehearing. Yeah, never mind. I'm good with that. I'm sorry, I just didn't read it properly earlier. I'm good with that. Anybody else have anything?
Nope.
Barb, you have anything?
No.
Barb, I've never seen you this quiet.
Because it's coming you.
Ah, there you are.
There I am. No.
She has a voice.
Do you actually hear me or am I?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
So it's always something. Is it, okay, G, is that all we got for that?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is put these together in a single document. If you think of something in the next day or two and you can email it to me. And if we put together a draft of this, we need to hold we need to make note of our changes at 2 consecutive meetings.
Yeah.
They don't have to be a public hearing, so we don't have to do like newspaper notice or anything, but you do have to make note of your changes at 2 consecutive meeting nights.
Okay.
So if I can, what I'll do is I'll make up a draft and circulate it around, and you can comment to just me on it, because if you comment to everybody, it's a meeting. So, and send it to me and I'll have it prepared for the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, what other business do we have?
I have nothing else for the board.
I have a question for Dee. How do you want to get these up? We got to keep these plans and give them back to you, correct? The drawings?
What I can do is I can pick them up when I make the packet delivery for the next meeting.
Okay.
So you're
So
talking
when you
about
know-
the plans, the big parcel of plans?
Yeah, the big plans from the last application.
Okay.
So if you can, I can pick them up. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't you hold on? I'll let you know, because there may, if we get a request for rehearing, you still may want to have them.
Okay.
So if we get some kind of request for rehearing, you still may want to have them. Well, I'll send out an email saying how I'll grab them from you based on how the applicant proceeds next.
Okay.
Make sense?
Nothing else, Dee?
Nope, we can ask Frank to take us off cable if you'd like.
I would like that. Declare this meeting adjourned. Ask Frank to make it go away and